Okay, today I want to talk about this stuff called Cistanche. Cistanche is a herb that emanates from China and Mongolia. It's also called desert ginseng. As a matter of fact, an interesting historical tidbit about Cistanche is that those of you who know anything about world history might have heard of a guy named Genghis Khan, who conquered most of the world. He was a little short guy, but he had a lot of children. Apparently, they say that like a quarter of the world's population is directly related to Genghis Khan. But Genghis Khan's favorite herb was Cistanche. Again, I'm not saying that taking this herb is going to allow you to conquer half the world, but it does have some pretty interesting health properties. But there's a caveat that I have to mention right at the beginning of this video, which is that, hold on a second, I can't even hear myself. Hello? Yeah, anyway, as a caveat is that just about every study showing the benefits of Cistanche involved rodent or animal studies. There was only one human study, and that human study had to do with the effect of Cistanche on affecting memory and also slowing down the progression of Alzheimer's disease. But what that study showed was potentially good effects because Cistanche affects a couple of what they call brain neurotransmitters. These are chemicals in the brain that transmit neuron messages. And in the case of Cistanche, it seemed to benefit the neurotransmitters dopamine. Now, dopamine is involved in that's called the neurotransmitter of focus and success, because it stimulates you it gives you the energy and the drive to succeed, basically. In some people, the specific neurons that produce dopamine in the brain, it's produced in a section of the brain called the substantia nigra. These things get destroyed through various reasons. Nobody really knows. There's environmental factors, but in any case, the cells stop producing enough dopamine, and that produces disease called Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease. Bill Pearl, the great four-time Miss Universe, recently succumbed to the effects of Parkinson's disease at age 91. But anyway, getting back to Cistanche, I don't want to talk about Parkinson's disease here. But again, to begin with, you understand what I'm about to tell you. Almost all of it is derived from rat studies. But there's an aspect of Cistanche that, I've seen it pushed. Let me backtrack. Going online, Cistanche seems to be pushed as a nootropic, meaning a brain stimulant that might increase intelligence, focus, and concentration. And if it actually increases dopamine in the brain, it would really do that. It also seems to have a beneficial effect on acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter particularly functioning in the hippocampus section of the brain, which has to do with memory and learning. So if Cistanche really stimulated the release of these neurotransmitters, it really would have a nootropic effect. But again, there's very little evidence of this in humans. It did seem to favorably affect neurotransmitters in people with Alzheimer's disease. But there's the point is there's no studies of humans with normal cognition or brain function showing that show that taking Cistanche will increase intelligence, memory, or focus. In fact, that holds true for most of the so-called nootropic supplements. The research that exists on them almost entirely consists on people who have existing brain disease. In other words, in these people, they're not producing enough neurotransmitters, or maybe the parts of the brain that produce these neurotransmitters are damaged, so they take these nootropic substances which may kick out a little extra neurotransmitter, so they do show improvements in cognition. But remember, these are people with damaged brains. There's no human evidence at all that they work for people with normal functioning human brains that don't have any damage. As a matter of fact, this is a little bit off topic. I've been using a nootropics drug actually, but they sell it as a supplement called aracetam, and I just came across a study the other day. Aracetam is what they call a racetam. It's a very popular class of nootropic drugs. Also, most of them sold as supplements. In Europe, they're actually sold as drugs, but aracetam, again, has the way they push it, it increases focus, intelligence, ability to concentrate. Well, I came across this rat study, and it showed that when they gave a pharmaceutical dose of aracetam to these rats, it had no effect whatsoever. I mean, zero on cognition, which is making me wonder if my use of aracetam was nothing more than a placebo effect, because it did seem to help my focus and concentration, but I take so many other things that affect that, it's hard to assign it to aracetam. It's hard to say that aracetam, but anyway, getting back to Cistanche, again, the studies show that it increases cognition. Another possible use of Cistanche that's being pushed online is that it could be a testosterone booster. And once again, the only studies that show this are rat and mice, rodent studies. Now, the way it supposedly does this is it kind of it blocks receptors in the brain for a substance called gonadotropin releasing hormone, which basically controls the release of another hormone released in the brain called luteinizing hormone, which is produced from the pituitary gland. Luteinizing hormone travels in the blood to the testes, where it basically kickstarts the synthesis of testosterone by converting cholesterol first into progesterone, and then through a series of chemical steps involving enzymes into testosterone. So what the animal studies show is that giving Cistanche blocks gonadotropin releasing hormone receptors in the hypothalamus in the brain, which makes the brain believe that the body is low in testosterone. So as a result of that, it initiates various processes that will increase testosterone, such as increasing the various enzymes that I just mentioned that are involved in the synthesis of testosterone in the latex cells of the testes. Now, this has been shown in animal studies, rats and rodents. It also seems to, in the animal studies, it also seems to increase fertility. Cistanche not only increases testosterone in rats or rodents, it also increases estrogen. So that's something to keep in mind. But estrogen will stimulate follicle-stimulating hormone, which would increase fertility. That explains how Cistanche would increase fertility in the animals. And the animals also showed an increased ability to attain erections. Don't ask me how they measure that in rats and mice. I don't know whether these are a magnifying glass. I don't know, but apparently it increased the ability for the animals to have spontaneous erections more easily. And again, if your testosterone goes up, it usually has a favorable effect on erectile dysfunction. So anyway, that could be the process. But again, I must emphasize that there's no evidence that Cistanche will increase testosterone in humans. It may and may not, but there's not a drop of evidence, anecdotal evidence that I've heard. I've asked a couple of people who've taken Cistanche as a testosterone booster. You have to understand, it's not really sold as a testosterone booster. It's sold mainly as a memory or brain booster, a nootropic, rather than a testosterone booster. But the people who've taken it, their feeling is that they didn't notice anything one way or the other. None of them noticed a great increase in thinking ability, memory, focus. None of them noticed that. Certainly didn't notice any increase that would be indicative of increased testosterone, such as an increase in sex drive, maybe a little bit greater strength, muscle gains. None of that occurred. So I would suspect that Cistanche has very little efficacy in raising testosterone in humans. I could be wrong about that, but it does do that in rats. Another possible benefit of Cistanche is that it seems to have, again, rat studies, no human studies whatsoever. It seems to have a really good effect on the immune system. Cistanche in animal studies has been shown to increase the amounts of natural killer cells. Natural killer cells, such as natural killer T cells, protect you against the invasion of pathogenic organisms, such as viruses and bacteria. And they also, the killer cells will actually prevent it'll destroy incipient tumors from developing. In other words, there's always tumors developing in the body, and when the natural killer cells destroy these tumors, these precancerous cells, before they can take hold and cause cancer. Cistanche also helps the other types of immune cells called B cells, which also help to fight various pathogens. The Cistanche also seems to provide anti-inflammatory effects, which is again favorable to immunity, and it increases the activity of dendritic cells, which activate what they call naive T cells, and it decreases pro-inflammatory cytokines such as interleukin-6, which cause inflammation and dampen immune response. The active compounds in Cistanche are what they call polysaccharides, similar to compounds that are found in mushrooms, such as reishi and several other mushrooms. Maki, I can't remember the name of it, but these mushrooms also have polysaccharides, and that's thought to provide some of the anti-cancer effect that's found in various mushrooms. The active is also a class of polyphenols, which are types of antioxidants. Polyphenols are converted by the gut bacteria or the intestinal microbiome into more active substances. In the case of Cistanche, the most active polyphenols are what they call phenylethanoid glycosides, which include echinocide, I believe that's pronouncing it, and that's also found in the echinacea. And echinacea has a reputation of helping to prevent or decrease the severity of colds and flu. When they gave Cistanche extract to, again, an animal study, to the animals that had been given a flu vaccine, giving them Cistanche increased the efficacy of the flu vaccine. So, again, Cistanche is good for the brain because it helps reduce neural inflammation. Neural inflammation or inflammation in the brain is considered a major cause of brain degenerative diseases, including Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. And again, I mentioned that human study. It was the only human study that I know of that utilized Cistanche. It involved men and women who had moderate Alzheimer's disease, not severe, moderate, like the beginning stages. They took 300 milligrams of Cistanche 3 times daily for nearly a year, and the results showed that Cistanche significantly lowered certain inflammatory factors in fluids surrounding the subject's brain and spinal cord compared to a placebo group. The untreated subjects who did not take Cistanche also showed a shrinkage of the hippocampus of 4.2%. Now, the hippocampus is the area of the brain that's considered the seat of memory and intelligence, and it's the hardest hit when you get Alzheimer's disease. This is why it causes a lot of the memory deficits associated with Alzheimer's disease. And again, in this human study, the one human study, the untreated subjects showed a shrinkage of their hippocampus by 4.2%, while those who took the Cistanche had no change whatsoever in the value of the hippocampus. And again, the hippocampus is very important for cognition. That's thinking ability, memory, learning. And by the way, exercise also increases and maintains hippocampal volume. So if you exercise, you will also maintain the hippocampus. One of the reasons why both exercise and Cistanche help maintain hippocampus volume is because they stimulate a substance called nerve growth factor. Nerve growth factor helps to maintain neurons in the brain, and that explains why Cistanche and exercise help maintain brain function, particularly in the hippocampus area. Some of you might have heard of a mushroom called lion's mane. Lion's mane also directly stimulates nerve growth factor, and that's where you get the cognitive benefits of lion's mane. Also, because of the stimulation of the immune system, as you might expect, Cistanche seems to help prevent or fight various kinds of cancer. Again, only in animals. This has not been shown in humans. In animals, providing animals with Cistanche help to prevent cancerous changes in the cells found in the esophagus, the breast, colon, and liver. Cistanche in animal studies has been shown to directly trigger the death of colorectal cancer cells. A laboratory study, of animals, found that Cistanche inhibited the growth of colon cancer by 60% within 72 hours of treatment. And that included cancerous cells that have begun to metastasize or spread. So the mouse studies show that Cistanche increases the level of certain particular T cells that are involved in suppressing cancer, called CD8 plus cells. I believe those are also the cells that are attacked by the HIV virus also. Cistanche also inhibited the growth of liver cancer cells. It seems to have in certain species with short lifespans, such as fruit flies and roundworms. Those are the favorite study subjects of longevity scientists because they're short-lived, and these little animals contain most of the genes that are found in humans are contained in these little animals, and because of this short lifespan, they could study how various longevity treatments affect them. So what they found is that when they gave adult fruit flies Cistanche for 20 days, it extended their lifespan by 18.9%. When they gave it to these roundworms called C. elegans, they increased the average lifespan of the worms by 13.64% compared to an untreated group. So there's some, again, animals studies that show that Cistanche, again, this would be of interest to bodybuilders and athletes, that might have an effect on increase or stimulating the release of growth hormone. When they expose isolated rat pituitary cells, the pituitary gland in the brain is the site of growth hormone production. And what they did is they took isolated cells from the rat pituitary gland and they exposed it to some compounds found in Cistanche. They found that it stimulated the secretion of growth hormone. This is even less reliable because it was an isolated cell study. In other words, it didn't even occur even in a full rat body. It was what they call an in vitro study, and that very often cannot be extrapolated to an intact human body. Other studies show that Cistanche might help stimulate bone-building cells called osteoblasts, which might have a beneficial effect at helping to prevent osteoporosis. Some other studies show that Cistanche might improve insulin resistance. It also might help prevent depression because in the brain, Cistanche inhibits an enzyme called monoamine oxidase, which breaks down neurotransmitters associated with a increased mood, such as norepinephrine and dopamine. MAO, or monoamine oxidase, breaks down these neurotransmitters, and if you inhibit MAO, or monoamine oxidase, you have a greater amount of these feel-good neurotransmitters, which means there's much less chance of depression. Again, this is rat studies. Some rat studies even show that Cistanche can lower cholesterol. It also helps to combat physical fatigue. That's why it's called desert ginseng, is another name for Cistanche. And it seems to reduce the severity of cataracts. So what else can I say about this stuff? I think that's about it. Now, to sum it up, Cistanche, the best evidence, again, derived from very minimal human research and a good amount of rat or animals and mouse studies shows that Cistanche might have beneficial effects on brain function. helped maybe slow down the progression of Alzheimer's disease and neurodegenerative disease. It can help reduce inflammation in the brain, which helps prevent these types of diseases. It does stimulate the immune system in the animals, and it may or may not initiate mechanisms that would result in an increase in testosterone and growth hormone. But again, the data to show that exists only in mouse and rat studies, and there's not a drop of evidence to show that it works the same in humans. So if you want to use Cistanche, the dosage is usually 200 to 300 milligrams a day. It's not something that I myself would be interested in. Perhaps, maybe if I was showing severe memory deficits, I might consider it. But there's other things I think are relatively better than Cistanche at improving memory deficits in anyone over 40, such as those previously mentioned nootropics. Again, they don't work that great in people that have fully functioning brains. But if you're starting to have memory problems or trouble focusing and concentrating, the nootropic, particularly what they call the racetams, they can have a little slight beneficial effect. I've used them for my writing. I take them before I do my writing, and it does seem to, maybe it is a placebo effect. I don't know. I'm going to be doing an article on nootropics for my Applied Metabolics publication, where I'm going to really look into the very deeply into the research. But from what I understand now, from leading researchers who've studied nootropic drugs, is that they work best if you already have some brain damage. Anyway, that's about it for Cistanche. If you want more information on nutrition, exercise science, anti-aging research, hormonal therapy, effective fat loss techniques, ergogenic age, supplements, which supplements work, which ones don't. I'm not associated with any supplement company, so I'm going to tell you the truth. I have no axis to grind. Unlike about 98% of the people that do these YouTube videos that are involved with companies that sell products, they get kickbacks. And oh, by the way, I'll tell you how you could tell. Real easy way to tell. If you're looking, let's say you look at a video on YouTube and it's about any particular supplement or something like that, anti-aging supplement or bodybuilding supplement. If you look at the information box, if it says 20% discount if you mention, and they'll give you a little code, that means that the person who's posting that video, it gets a kickback from the supplement company to push the company's supplements. And those videos, I would say to really, really look askance on. In other words, I'd be very careful about trusting them. Because remember, they have an axe to grind. They're being paid money to push particular supplements. I'm not in that category. I'll tell you the truth. So I also cover women's health and fitness in my Applied Metabolics. You can subscribe at www.appliedmetabolics.com. When you subscribe, if you send me an email, I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page, where each day I post new information on nutrition, exercise science, and general medicine. I also have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics website, I should say, where current subscribers only can send me short questions about anything they might have read in Applied Metabolics or anything else that comes to mind related to nutrition and exercise, and I'll be happy to answer them as a kind of a bonus for their subscription to Applied Metabolics. I don't answer unsolicited questions. I only answer questions from current subscribers. So again, subscribe today, www.appliedmetabolics.com. If you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. I think that's about it. Take care. Thank you for listening.